Welcome, my dear audience of Oxygen Talk Show. Today we will speak on an historical decision of the Canadian Parliament by recognizing the genocide of Uygurs Muslims in China. We will speak about this topic with MP Garnett Genuis, the MP of Sherwood Park, Fort Saskatchewan. Welcome, MP Garnett.
Thank you so much. It's a real pleasure to be with you today.
Thank you very much. Actually, it is a historical decision for the Canadian Parliament with 100% voting. Successfully, the Conservative lead this motion to recognize the genocide of Uygurs Muslims in the Canadian Parliament. Aaron O'Toole, leader of Conservatives, lead this 100% voting against the genocide happens for the Muslims in the Xinjiang County. First of all, I'd like to inform my audience what happened to make Canada move 100% to vote against this to the Uygurs Muslims in China.
Yes, well, this has been a discussion that's been going on for months in the context of the Canadian Parliament, and of course longer before that. In the summer, the Subcommittee on International Human Rights did a study, a 2-day intensive study on the situation, and that led the subcommittee to conclude that it was a genocide, and then subsequently to make the case to the rest of Parliament, kind of culminating in this motion. And for those who haven't been following all the details here, what we see in East Turkestan or in Xinjiang really is the most technologically sophisticated genocide in human history, the largest mass detention of a minority community since the Holocaust, and the government of China is deploying, horrific new technology to monitor, to track, to violently repress the Uyghur community, and this really is a defining issue for the world. It's important for the rights of these people that are subject to this ongoing genocide, but we also see the way in which the government of China is developing the tools for repression and violence that are likely to potentially be used in other parts of the world if the government of China isn't in some way deterred from continuing to take these actions. So it's an issue of justice for the victims, and also it's an issue of the direction of the world in terms of whether we're going to allow these kinds of horrific crimes to be perpetrated against people or not.
Oh, so the movements of the Conservative lead to 100% vote for condemning and recognizing this genocide. But my second question: how Canada will make this recognizing of the genocide or condemning to be effective? What do you think the next steps to make this effective, to make China change its way of treatment to the Uygurs Muslims?
Well, this is a very important question, because the first step is recognition, but that recognition is meaningless if it's not followed by subsequent actions that are going to really have an impact. So we've been calling for Magnitsky sanctions, targeted sanctions against those involved in these gross violations of human rights. We've also called for the relocation of the Olympics. We've called for meaningful measures to be put in place around supply chain production to prevent Canada from importing products which are produced by slave labor. Slave labor is a big part of the violence that's happening in Xinjiang. So these are some of the concrete measures that we need to take. Unfortunately, Justin Trudeau and his cabinet abstained from the vote on recognizing this genocide and still haven't taken the position themselves that the House of Commons has taken unanimously. So it remains to be seen what that follow-up is, and the government certainly is behind where the House of Commons is here.
Yeah, and I do think Prime Minister Justin Trudeau have mentioned that genocide is extremely loaded. So do you think that this decision will affect the relation, which is already very complicated, with China?
Well, look, it will have an impact, certainly. Our hope is that the government will take a stronger line in response to what the government of China is doing, really speaking truth to power, standing up in a way that reflects Canada's values and Canada's interests, and working to unite with allies to provide that pushback. We have many challenges in this relationship, but we don't make those challenges any better by looking weak. We need to be clear and strong and principled, and that's what's going to improve the situation.
Actually, this will lead me to another question. Do you expect the Conservative Party will do another motions to recognize another genocides like what happened in Nigeria, where Christians are killed on a daily basis by hundred? Do you think that do you have plans to do such motions?
Well, I think that part of the need to focus on the situation in China at this stage was the way in which China, the horror of the crimes combined with the way in which China is moving into sort of global superpower position. And anytime you see violence in other parts of the world against minorities, you have to ask, what's the government of China's engagement with that country like? There was the coup in Burma recently, and there's a lot of speculation about the conversations that may have happened between Burma's generals and the government of China. The government of China is very active in various parts of Africa, and whereas our engagement with countries and throughout the world seeks to promote human rights, the engagement of the government of China seeks to take a permissive approach to authoritarianism and sort of suggest that governments should be able to do whatever they want towards their own people. So this is, I think, it speaks to the importance of looking at and dealing with the Chinese government piece in particular. But I am very seized with the issue of violence against Christians. You know this. I've spoken about this many times in different contexts. In Nigeria, in Egypt, in Iraq and Syria, where conservatives push to recognize a genocide there happening against Yazidis and Christians. We have a fairly limited supply of opposition motions specifically, so there's other channels of raising these things. I know that the situation, I believe the situation in Nigeria is or has recently been considered at the Subcommittee on International Human Rights. So there are different ways of bringing these issues forward, and it's certainly important that we do so.
That's true. We always witness that you always raise the points of persecuting minorities. However, in Nigeria, situation is a little bit different than what has happened in Egypt. Nigeria is a systematic killing for Christians, while in Egypt there are some individuals tries from terroristic groups like Muslim Brotherhood or some of the Salafi groups which kill or prosecute Christians, but however the regime itself is trying to minimize or to eliminate such things.
Yes, I totally agree that they're very different situations. I didn't mean to conflate them. Just to say that there are issues where minorities are facing violence. That we need to be raising, and yes, we need to be aware of the differences. And I certainly have heard the argument that the situation in Nigeria constitutes effectively a genocide of Christians, and it's a situation that we need to define, be seized with, and be pushing the government there on as well. Absolutely.
That's great, and thank you very much for the Conservative to lead such humanitarian movements in Canada. We usually know that Canada is a leader in that area, and thank you very much for that, and we hope that we have another motion for the Nigerian people who are prosecuted by some of the groups and killing Christians by hundreds, maybe on a weekly or a daily basis. Thank you, MP Garnett Genuis, MP of Sherwood Park, for Saskatchewan, and we, if you want to have a final quote for this interview.
Well, thank you very much, and I do just want to underscore the point that the government of China is building the tools and techniques of violent repression. They're using very high-tech software for tracking people on the basis of ethnicity, and they're developing a social credit system across the whole country of China that would limit people's ability to travel and really try to control their behavior. And we need to be, I think, particularly pointed in our response to the use of this technology of repression, because it's not going to stay inside of China. It is going to be, I believe, part of the government of China's kind of neo-colonial engagement with other parts of the world. We need to be strong in our response anytime we see violence against minorities. But when the world's most populous country, second largest economy, is led by a government that is building and exporting these tools of repression, this is a very grave situation. And I hope all of us can identify that particular problem and work together to respond to it.
I totally agree with your call, Garnett, because it is now not only in minorities, it oppresses its own people who are great nations. The Chinese are great nations.
Yeah.
So we wish them more freedom and more way to express themselves. Thank you again for this valuable interview, and for sure you are always important guest on Oxygen Talk Show, and we will see you in another interviews. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Looking forward to it.